So, good evening, Dr. Brian. Thank you for being on the All Pulp No Fiction podcast. Uh, how you
Mhm.
been? I remember like last time I saw you was, right before Corona thing
Do you
happened,
remember?
right? Yeah, I,
Yes,
I
it was
remember. Yeah,
2020, right? It was right
Yes, 20.
January.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, went to go visit GC, and
Mm.
then there it was spreading a little bit, and then
Yeah.
Japan was still very open. It didn't really affect us, and then when I got
Yeah.
back home,
Yeah.
that's when really
That's
things started
when
to accelerate.
things,
And so yeah, I
yeah.
haven't been in a while.
Yeah. Are you planning to visit Japan anytime soon or not?
If that's an invite, I'll come today.
I mean, let
Let
me
me.
confirm.
I
Let me confirm
I
that. Yeah.
I love it there, and
Mm.
um, you're gonna laugh. Um, the first thing I would do is get off a plane and go get some tonkatsu.
Yeah, many people are in love with it. Like it really like they love our taste. So,
Yes, I would love to come visit soon.
yeah, well, hopefully, right? And I would love to meet you if if you're ever in town. Um, just I was looking at your website. First of all, like amazing website. I love it.
Thank you.
And the video is also like I love the production of it. Like it just so nice. I haven't seen something like this in a while, and I was just like I want to congratulate you on it. Awesome. What interested me though is
Thank
in
you.
your education. You all have a biochemistry and molecular biology degree.
Mhm.
What happened
I
there?
do.
Why what changed? Like going from there into dentistry.
And it's interesting. I don't know if it's like this in other places in the world, but in the
Mm,
United States, if you want to go to dental school, you have to have kind of a science background because a lot of the prerequisite courses
mm,
are science based. So you'll find a lot of people who end up going to dental school have a biology degree, a chemistry degree, neurology, something like that. So I think I landed in that topic or in that major because I knew I wanted to go into some sort of health field.
mm,
But if I could look back, if I could go back, I would actually study something that I was really interested in and just do all the prerequisites on the side because my interest in molecular biology and
mm.
biochemistry is not there. I
Really?
If I have enzyme kinetics or physical chemistry one more time in my life, I just
No,
can't. I know
that
that's just not me.
that's a
That
no.
I'm gonna take that part of my life. I'm thankful
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
I'm gonna take that part of my life and just kind of put it in the past, and that's what it is.
So that's really interesting. So you got into the to this program with the intent of actually joining dentistry later?
That's correct. I mean, it's again, it's kind of interesting how it works here. But everybody goes into some sort of science field. You know,
Mm,
I enjoyed some of the classes, but I don't know. If I could go back, I don't think I would take all those chemistry classes and biology classes. I mean, they're needed for dental school. We study
mm.
them for that, but I feel terrible saying that to one of the great chemical companies in the world. But it's just not my interest. It's
Yeah,
not my interest.
I mean it is what it is, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean,
Interestingly enough, I mean,
yeah,
my grades weren't great. My grades weren't great coming out of UC Davis, where I studied molecular bio and biochemistry. So I actually went back to school. I studied human anatomy and physiology. And that
yeah,
I actually did find interesting. I took a lot of courses that studied, physiology at altitude, what happens when people live in high altitude places like
mm,
Kenya and Nepal, and how people are different.
mm,
I think that's kind of interesting, exercise physiology, things that are a little bit more applicable to
uh-huh,
life. I think maybe
yeah,
that's where I would have landed rather than the micro. I'm not
yeah,
excited about how molecules interact.
yeah. Okay, so how did this process, benefit you in applying to dental school? Like, what was your story like? Was it were they really impressed by, by these steps that you took in order to get to dental school, or like it was like meh?
I'll tell you what they weren't impressed with was my really bad grades coming out of Davis. So I had to go back to school and show them that
Mm,
I could actually handle the dental school curriculum. Because again, here in the United States,
mm,
there's really two things you have to focus on while you're in dental school. It's the hand skills and the actual clinical work of being a dentist.
yeah,
But then there's also the didactic aspect of it, because part of our boards test is understanding a lot of that, you know, biochemistry, human anatomy, physiology, histology. You have to know that. And so it seems kind of like a hurdle for us here that, oh, you've got to study all the science to get into dental school. I know some countries treat it almost like a technical school where, it's here's how you do this with your hands, and here's the materials, and here's the steps. But yeah, they're really big on some of the biology and whatnot
oh, I
here.
see, I see. Well, obviously, in your practice, you do a lot of, I would say, comprehensive dentistry, a lot of aesthetic dentistry, a lot of, implants. I see you like, and you share this information on your social media too, right?
I do.
So how does that work? Like, obviously, how much do you share? I see, sharing quite a lot. So what's the system over there?
It's interesting because I actually give lectures to different study clubs and different organizations about social media.
Hmm.
And you would think that with, just looking at it very superficially, oh my gosh, here's my page. I share a lot. I post a lot. I have, X amount of followers. But one of the things I talk about in all my courses is that my page is probably not a good example of what to do, because I think I've kind of evolved and kind of fallen into this life of posting. I've
Mm-hmm.
always said that there's really two types of pages, that people try to strive for. And one is content creation. One is like people who are trying to constantly post and share and put themselves out there. And then the other is the actual consumer, right? The people who consume that content.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat difficult to be both. I know being a content creator takes up a lot of time. And so,
Mm.
yes, I share a lot of my dentistry, but there's definitely pros and cons to that. And it's
Can you
also
share
tough
with
because,
us?
well, one, you put yourself out there, right? And so, like, there's this joke I like to say: how many dentists does it take to change a light bulb? And
Mm.
it's 10. Nine, one of them to change the light bulb, and nine of them to tell him that he's doing it wrong. As in,
Yeah.
every time you share, like right now, if we change the podcast and we say, okay, our podcast is now on bonding protocol of composite,
Mm-hmm.
and I share my bonding protocol, I tell you about my selective etch and how I like to use a sixth generation bonding agent, and it has a separate prime,
Mm-hmm.
the etch and prime, and I don't
Yeah.
etch dentin, and then we put bonding agent, and then we cure that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's going to be people who disagree. And it's an interesting industry we're in because we can't just disagree and leave it alone. We have to be, when we disagree, people like to get vocal in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the downsides of sharing this stuff on social media is that it invites criticism, and a lot of people who maybe disagree, and it can wear on you. It's tough getting a lot of the negativity, hearing it over and over again. And there's actually studies that show that it affects mental health in some individuals too. So that's
Yeah.
one of the downsides.
Mm-hmm. And and obviously, like if you go to any, popular page, not maybe not just yours, like if you go to any popular page and go to the comment section, it's not all positive, reinforcement. Like there are quite negative ones.
Yeah, and that's why, whenever people ask me like, "Hey, should I be on social media? Should I be sharing things?" I always like to ask people why. Like what are you trying to achieve? One, you should set a goal. Your goal could be, I'm trying to get patients. or
Hmm.
I'm trying to connect with colleagues, or I'm trying to learn, or I'm trying to educate. Whatever it is, you got to have that goal. And then you have to actually enjoy the process of doing that, because if you don't enjoy it, if you're not somebody, it shouldn't be stressful. I get a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, like I gotta come up with another post, or oh, like what should I do? And it takes over their life. That
Hmm.
nothing in this world is worth somebody getting stressed out over, like
Yeah,
especially something as silly as social media and posting.
can't agree more. So obviously, dentists and dental professionals are not the only ones following your account, right? So patients who might be interested in, or who are already, your patients, um, do view these, posts. And again, what's what's the level, that you of openness that should
Yeah,
be there, with, on your social media. So,
that's a good question.
mhm,
Um, what's interesting, and you're probably gonna hear me say this over and over again. Again, my page is not the page to replicate. So, like going back to what I just said, like if you have a goal, let's say your goal is to connect with colleagues,
mhm,
then your page should really be curated towards colleagues, and it might not be positive that you have patients following your page. Or conversely, if your page is set up to get patients in the door as a marketing page, it
mhm.
doesn't help, in my opinion, it doesn't help to have a bunch of dentists like coming to your page and turning it into more of a professional behind the scenes page. I'll tell you an interesting story. Again, my page is not the page to follow. It has, you're right, it has a variety of different people who follow it.
Mhm,
I took a course at the Koi Center. I think it
mhm.
was the Koi Center. And I had posted something about implants, something that I had just learned. And I was so excited. And I said, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I've been practicing dentistry the way I have without this piece of information. I can't even think of what it was.
Yeah.
And a lot of dentists said, oh my gosh, that's so helpful. I'm going to start doing that. Some people said, oh, I've been doing that for X amount of years. Here's my success with it. That's great. And then a week later, I got a message from a patient who said, wait a minute, you gave me an implant last month. Did you not do this? Or is it not
Yeah.
as good as one that you would put in today because of this? You just learned it. So again, you have to kind of figure out where your audience is. And it's interesting that dentistry is different from other health professions. Like if I'm going to go get open heart surgery, I can't go find a bunch of heart surgeons on social media and see what they say about different techniques and whatnot. Like all that stuff is private. They're in private rooms. They're speaking
Yeah.
at conferences. But somehow we as dentists kind of just put that out in the world, which is good and bad, I think.
Yeah.
Good because in order to be transparent, you have to do good work, but bad because I mean,
You're out there.
sometimes you just, yeah, you don't want people looking behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it just depends on what kind of practice you have. One more analogy is like restaurants. Last time I
Mm.
was in Tokyo, I went to Narisawa.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with that restaurant?
I am
I think
not really familiar, yeah.
I think they have two Michelin stars. Two,
Mhm,
maybe three. I think it's two. But
mhm.
we went in there. It was a beautiful meal. What's interesting about it is we told the chef that we wanted to take a picture with him. And he said, oh, please come with me. And he brought us to the back into his kitchen. And we took the picture there. And as we looked around, this was near the end of service, people are cleaning. The place is spotless. You could see how the fish and everything was just being handled. In order for him to be transparent like that and say, please come into my kitchen, it's got to be spotless. He
Oh yeah.
couldn't do that if things weren't like that. So it's kind of the same way. Like if you want to be transparent on social media, you better be good. You better be doing everything right. Because a lot of
Yeah.
it can be used.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, And it would be quite embarrassing if you share something that is quite bad, you know. You'll get immediate feedback, right?
It's tough because those are the times where we learn the most, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is, I'm not perfect. Um, but being able to share a failure
Mm.
or something that where could I have done this better?
Mm.
It's nice posting that case and getting feedback from so many different professionals who are willing to help. That's the good again, right? There's this huge
Yeah.
community of learning. But
Mm-hmm.
the bad is, do you want your patients to know that there's failures? I mean, again, it depends on the patient, because some
Right.
might say, look, this person's genuine, they're trying to do good. But some people go, well, I don't know if I really want this person who messed up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember once, I think it's on your highlights. Uh, I don't know, like something about zirconia, and then the types of zirconia that you posted, and then a guy on the comments, I think, or someone said that, oh, this is just dental school talk. Like once you're in practice, like you don't really care about this type of thing. Do you remember something of this sort of?
I do remember that. I mean, I get
Yeah.
that a lot. I get a lot
Yeah,
of
and I'm
different.
like, it's how do you you know for I mean the way you handled it is like you educated, like you shared a few stories, just detailing the science behind, the types of zirconia and which types to use to which which cases. But I'm always like, whenever I see you post like this, I'm like, it should be a bit stressful, right? Like you just said, like nothing is, worth stressing about, but honestly, like this kind of situation might be stressful.
It's interesting because I personally, I'm just speaking for myself.
Uh-huh.
I've gone through such an evolution social media wise. There's been times where, like in the
Mm-hmm.
past, I would worry about things like that. Like, oh my gosh, I have this many comments. Oh my gosh, these people are upset. I think now I have a really good grasp of why I share what I share
Mm-hmm.
and what my page is. And I don't really care about these numbers anymore. So if somebody, for example, I do this call quite a bit. Sometimes I'll get people who are just so negative. It's
Mm.
one thing you can disagree. I actually welcome discourse. But the moment you're rude to me or rude to somebody's comment, or you're
Mm.
just bringing a little bit of negativity, I'm so quick to just block people now. It's okay. Like,
Yeah,
just
right.
like
Yeah.
you don't need that follower, and then you don't need that negativity. And guess what? There's
Mm.
so many people in this world. Don't worry
Mm.
about it. It's like an ex-girlfriend. You never,
Yeah.
you're always worried, oh my gosh, I'm gonna see this person. No, you're not. Never.
Probably
No,
won't. Yeah.
this world's too big. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Yeah.
They'll be upset that they're blocked for a day, a two, a week, and then they'll forget about you.
Uh, Speaking about that, like, about being upset, um, you mentioned a little bit earlier that the type of patient that is, watching your posts might, not every patient is going to be happy about you posting that you're learning, and that, there's something that you didn't know and now you know. But it is like, how can I say, the more you know, the more you don't know, right? Like they say that. So, you got
Yeah,
to keep learning. How does this process, do you feel like that this, social media behavior, it helps educate patients, or like not really?
I think it can, as long as you're focused on educating patients, right? As long as that's what your goal is. And it also depends on the type of patient that you're trying to get into your practice. So, like Adam and I are very fortunate
Mm-hmm.
that we run a practice that we always say we're not the dentist for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I mean by that is the type of patient who would get offended that we're sharing so openly about the dentistry we do, it's okay. They don't have to come to us. There's
Mm-hmm.
140 other dentists in our building alone that they can go to. So I think it's more, the more comfortable I am with what we're doing and the dentistry we're doing and with the care we're providing, that stuff shouldn't matter. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I think the focus should be more on the dentistry and less on the social media. The social media is an adjunct to
Mm-hmm.
the dentistry and not the other way around. And unfortunately, or fortunately for some, I guess, depending on how you look at it, In
Mm.
art today's world, everybody, I swear there's people who come out of dental school and they want to be an influencer, um,
Some
rather
people,
than
I would say, like
trying
in
to be a
dental school.
dentist.
You posted about that actually, right? Some people going into dentistry, already posting about it.
Yeah, it's I don't mean to be negative to these people, but you'll they'll post or create some sort of like relationship with a company to get free stuff. Like,
Hmm.
here's a free pair of scrubs, or here's a free pair of whatever, and now you're going to market for us, and you feel good. I was one of these people too. I felt good being this influencer type, right? But
Mhm.
then if you think about it, if you instead just focus on being a better dentist, getting your production, learning how to treatment plan more, do more work, do quicker work, more high quality work that doesn't need to be repeated. I mean, we're fortunate to be in an industry where dentists make a pretty good living. And if you
Mhm.
do that, you could probably just buy those scrubs that you were spending so much time posting about. You know
Yeah,
what I
you
mean?
don't really need to do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless that's your goal. I mean, some people, it's a really interesting society where now somebody can be they can kind of hit a little trampoline and go from dental
Mhm.
student to someone who matters and feels good and is
Mhm.
influential. But
Mhm.
um again, that was me. I used to think that was great, but now I realize that, like, I need to build the steps to get up there. I need
Mhm.
to have the foundation to support that.
Right. Um, Sorry, we drifted off a little bit. I want to go back to,
No.
dealing with, with patients, and how do you manage patients' expectations? Especially, let's
Mm.
say if, what you're showing, or like, let's not say, social media. Like, let's say you have, like right now, it's, people have their own websites, and the cases that you show are just, everyone just shows their best work, right? How do you manage your patients' expectations coming to your clinic after, showing, you know, your best cases ever on social media or on
Yeah.
your website?
I think the first step is actually setting those expectations, right? Like talking to patients. So
Mhm.
um it's all communication. So if we're talking about an aesthetic case, I mean, we really love trying to set that expectation early, either through 2D, smile designs, smile simulations,
Mhm.
3D mock-ups in the mouth, and then eventually with your temporaries. We've never really been the practice. You see it all the time where people, they get their teeth, the finals are in, and then they're like, okay, like, are you ready? And then they give them the mirror, and then they look, and they're like, oh my God, I look so good.
Yeah.
That that's a surprise, right? And
Yeah.
could you imagine if that patient didn't like it? Like, there would probably be a
Yeah.
disconnect, and it's already in. So you've got to set that expectation early. Um, and you have to be authentic with your cases. So that's one of the other things too, is it's like, if you are willing to post a case on your website or social media, like, you've got to practice in a way that's how that looks, right? I mean, everybody's
Mm-hmm.
gone through that, where you see that burger ad and it looks so good, and then you go to the restaurant, you order the burger, and you're kind of like, it's all smashed
Why
down, it just
doesn't it
doesn't look
why
the same.
doesn't it look like the ad?
That's it. So you got to be genuine with it too.
Mm.
And I think, again, it's just patient communication. You have to set that expectation early.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to know your limitations. I've had, one patient came to me because they needed some fillings done. And I always use an intraoral camera to show them the before and afters. And I'll never forget this. They said, after seeing the afters, they're going, it doesn't look like the cases you shared on social media. And I go, what do you mean? So she pulls up some cases, and these are ones where, I had layered and stained on these back teeth. And looking back, I think I probably did that for social media, knowing I was going to post it, or maybe I did it for an article. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not my normal workflow, right? Like, I'm not spending
Uh,
2, 3 hours on a case like that. And so I had to explain to her, on the back end, oh my gosh, like I'm, this is, don't worry, this is sealed. I know it doesn't have this stain. But anytime you have to explain after, it's an excuse, right?
Oh,
So again,
right. Yeah.
from a communication standpoint, you got to bring that stuff before. You got to ask people what they're expecting and really communicate with them.
I see. In the type of cases, like as we said earlier in the interview, we like you do comprehensive dentistry. Do you think, obviously, like communication is important, like, but what cases are, do you feel like there are more cases that you really need to be, you take a lot more care in explaining stuff to your patients before starting the treatment compared to others, or like they're all the same?
Yeah, what's interesting is I would say it's less about the procedure themselves, but more about the overall plan. When I first got out of dental school, um, I was so focused on procedures, right? So like, if you ask the average dental student to put together a treatment plan, they're worried about the overall procedures. Like, oh my gosh, they need deep cleaning, and then they need fillings, and then they need crowns, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Whereas now, I think with this comprehensive dentistry, it's more so understanding the complete picture. Where are we trying to go? So, like, the hiccup isn't so much the individual procedures and setting those expectations for patients, it's them understanding that we can't stop halfway. That where, like, for example, we might open a bite, but that's in preparation for veneers and crowns on the upper arch. Or we might do Invisalign, but
Mhm.
we might be opening spaces so we can idealize things on the back end. Like, it's an overall like a plan built up of a bunch of smaller procedures. And so it's not the individual procedures that we have trouble communicating and getting patient buy-in. It's just making sure they understand that it's part of a bigger plan.
I see. Obviously, today we've learned a lot about how to communicate better with your patients, right? But I mean, and this is my last two questions. One is like, how do being open and being able to communicate your ideas better and being transparent, right, benefit the patient, as opposed to you yourself, you're just kind of protecting yourself, right, by being frank right from the start and setting expectations. This is, on one hand, you're being careful about your practice, about your business, and making sure that you don't have troubles afterwards, right? But on the patient side, how do you think that this kind of behavior benefits the patient?
I think that it's really important for the patients to have buy-in to the plan as well,
Mm-hmm.
because in the end, clinical success doesn't just depend on our hands. It depends on the patient's overall experience and feeling as well. You can have the best case in the world, but if they don't understand, if they, the patient, don't understand why we had to do it in the first place, or
Mm-hmm.
why they need to have some sort of particular follow-up, whether it be retainers or some sort of appliance or some sort of maintenance schedule,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a disconnect there. So again, like, it kind of connects with what I was saying earlier. This is all part of the bigger plan. Like, what is our goal?
Mm-hmm.
You come to our practice, our job isn't to try and find dentistry to do. Our job is to try and find out what your goals are and how we can get you healthy. And from there, that map, what dental procedures do we need to do to get there? So
Mm-hmm.
I think the more you understand, the more transparent we are with that, the more we educate patients about that,
Mm-hmm.
the more buy-in they have to the overall plan, which is, this is the right thing to do to get healthy, rather
Right.
than, oh, I just got a bunch of dentistry. Is it good or is it bad? That's
Right.
that's not what we want.
That's not.
We're not a mechanic shop. You know what I mean? Like, did you
Yeah.
change my oil? Not. It's more so like, do we take care of my car? Is it going to last longer? Am I going to get to my destination? Rather than individual car parts.
Yeah. That sounds, yeah, quite right. I mean, to be, to be put simple. Okay, just last question is if there was someone who is just about to start their practice or like to and want to start their own, I don't know, social media presence or like website presence, uh, what would be your advice to them? Where do they start?
But I think that all of these little pieces, and again, this even connects with what I just said, all the little pieces of your practice, your
Mm,
website, your location, your logo, your name, all the parts of branding and marketing need to have an overall goal and destination as well. You need to have values that support that because you can have the best website in the world. It can be unique and just have cool audio and video. But if it doesn't resonate with who you are and the type of practice and the type of dentistry you do, then it's all for nothing. So I think the first step is really just sitting down with yourself and saying, what is my goal for starting this at all? I'm going to start a website. What is the goal? Is it to educate patients? Is it to connect patients? Is it to just list my phone number and my location? And once you have that goal, then you can curate your website however you see fit. So what's interesting is if you go to my website,
I was about to ask you
if
about
you
that. Yeah.
oh, is that what you're gonna ask about? Like if you go
I mean,
to our favorite,
I was just like,
is
I
that what
was
you're
just
gonna
like,
ask?
when you started talking, like, well, I don't know, when you visited Japan, like when I saw you lecturing, like you said, like at this time you might not really need a website and that your website leads to your Instagram. But right
Yeah.
now you have this awesome website. So what changed there? Like what changed your mentality over there?
But you know what's interesting? It's different. So like
Hmm.
how much dentistry did you find on my website?
I mean, it's not really a like it just introduces you and your
Yeah.
team and just
And so we
yeah.
sat down and said, what is the goal? Like if somebody comes onto our website, what do we want them to experience?
Mm.
So my favorite page on my website is if you go to 450aesthetics.com and you click on faves,
Mm-hmm.
right? It shows our favorite restaurants, our favorite bars, our favorite
Hold on. I'm gonna check it.
I actually have a whole section on omakase sushi there.
Oh,
It's
really?
it's all our favorites there. So that way, if anybody visits San Francisco or if they're new to San Francisco, they can go and they have a little guide for where to check this to where to see things. We have our favorite nonprofits that we like to support, our favorite golf courses, and so we reverse engineered this. This wasn't a website that we said, "Oh, let's put this together and hopefully it people go to it." We said, "Well, what do we want to share with people?" And then those are the
Mm.
pages. My
Mm.
least favorite page that I see on websites,
Yeah.
and again, if you have this on your website, I don't mean to offend you. If it works for you, awesome.
Mm.
My least favorite page is the one where you look it up and it says our services or what do we do? So you'll go to a dental website, it's like our services, and you click on it and it's got a menu and it says crown and bridge, veneers, Invisalign, it has a list of all the procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, like who's looking at that? If somebody wants to learn about a root canal, they don't go to your website. They go to YouTube or they ask their friends or they do research on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So why should our websites be a resource for this information that people get elsewhere, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
really want to teach people about what a root canal is, go make a YouTube video and post it on your YouTube because that's where
Mm-hmm.
people are going. They're not going to your website. Like if
I
I
see.
want to know how to change the brakes in a car, I don't go to my mechanic's website. I look that up. Like, what should I be looking for? How much is this going
Mm-hmm.
to cost?
Right.
So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for these 2 cents. Obviously, you shared a lot of information with us today, and I'd like to thank you for being a guest on the podcast. And hopefully we'll see you in Tokyo if the chance comes by.
I think it was on the podcast. I think you invited me, so I'm gonna show
Yeah, I
up.
mean now I have to set this up or something. Yeah, but yeah, thank you very much for being here, and yeah, hopefully we'll have more episodes in the future, and your input is always very important to us. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, if anybody needs anything, any questions, like you're more than welcome to reach out to me, shoot me a DM on Instagram or
Yeah.
shoot me an email. You could probably share my contact info. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I was about to confirm with you. Like, I'll just put your information in the description of the podcast. So if people want to communicate with you, they can find you a bit easier.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you very much. Have a good, not day, night, I guess. It's about, is it sunsetting right now?
Yeah, yeah. The sun's
Yeah.
about to set.
Okay.
Um, just I think over there it's night, isn't it?
No, no, it's morning. We
Or
just
actually
started.
the morning.
We just started, yeah. So this is
Oh my
my
gosh,
first thing to do in, today. So quite fun day to start.
I love it. Well, it's
Yeah.
always great catching up with you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.